is Katrina Crouch, and today I'm here to talk to you about legal reasoning organization. Today's presentation will consist of 3 different parts. First, I'm going to give an example for how to structure your CREAC, and we'll walk through an example for that. Second, we're going to give a hypothetical and work as a class to determine the CREAC organizational structure for our discussion. For those of you joining online, feel free to pause the video at any time here. And finally, we're going to give a hypothetical activity to work on alone to test your knowledge. Legal writing is a technical writing and something that we instinctively know how to do when we consider the desires of our reader. Let me explain why. Close your eyes for a second. When I say legal reader, who do you see? Do you see a judge, a lawyer, a professor? Well, I'd like for you to start picturing our legal reader like this. An individual stuck with a flat tire who has no idea what he should do. He's like our legal reader because he, 1, is not an expert in this area of life, just like our legal readers are not experts on the legal issues we write memos about. 2, he is incredibly impatient, just like our legal reader. And 3, wants results fast, like our legal reader. So, allow me to tell you our legal reader's story. This is our legal reader. They are in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's currently 102 degrees outside. They're running late for a meeting with their boss, and midway on their route, they begin feeling the car start to wobble, shake, and vibrate. So, being good drivers having taken torts class, they pull over in the blistering heat, and they reach for their maintenance manual. It's a beautifully written manual that tells them exactly how to solve this problem. This is the manual that we are going to write for them today. Our reader flips through the very beginning of the manual and is able to figure out that he has a flat tire. But that's all he knows. So what's the first thing our manual should tell our reader? When we start telling our reader how to change the tire, do we start by telling them what a lug nut is? Do we start by explaining how high to jack up the car? Telling them to turn their hazard lights on? Telling them where to find their spare tire? Well, the assumption we make is that our reader already knows that they're going to have to change the tire. But for someone like our reader, who is unfamiliar with car problems, stuck out in the heat, and in a hurry to leave, not explicitly stating what the fix is or what we think our outcome fix will be can make them feel as confused and frustrated as you might feel when watching this. Pause for a moment and consider when, if at all, you knew what the commercial wanted you to buy. Without a thesis articulated up front, your reader is going to feel the same way you felt in that commercial. So caution yourself. Making assumptions about what your reader knows can be dangerous, time-consuming, and confusing for your reader. At the end of the day, a description of lug nuts without the context of knowing that it is a part needed to change a tire is completely useless to a reader until they know a tire needs to be changed to begin with. So make sure to always start by telling your reader what your overall outcome or prescribed fix will be. So start with a conclusion sentence that tells your reader this. How would this look like for our legal reader on the road? Well, it might look like telling your reader that they need to change the tire because the tire is currently flat. So what should I do next? Well, now that my reader knows they need to change their tire, it's time to begin to tell them how. But before I begin telling my reader each and every step of the process, I might want to make sure that they have all their materials ready and generally know what I'm about to have them do. So I want to provide my reader with an overall roadmap or an overview of every task we will be discussing in order to make the overall task more manageable. For my legal reader on the side of the road, this would look like To change your tire, you will need to 1. Pull over to a safe spot, 2. Turn on your hazard lights, 3. Apply the parking brake, 4. Pull out your spare tire and tools, 5. Loosen the lug nuts on the flat tire, 6. Jack up your vehicle, 7. Unscrew all your lug nuts, 8. Remove your flat tire off the vehicle and replace it with your spare tire, 9. Put your lug nuts back on the tire, 10. Remove the jack from the vehicle and go to an auto shop. While this gives my reader an excellent overview of the task, pause and consider how this huge chunk of a rule made you feel. Because the rule is so long and has so many different elements, my job is to help my reader calm down. How I do that is by explaining to the reader what steps they have either already completed or don't have to worry about completing. In this way, you make sure that your reader does not feel like you're ignoring them or ignoring anything when you decide to skip to the steps that need to be performed. How would this look for our legal reader on the side of the road? Something like this. Since you have already pulled over, this manual will focus on addressing how to complete steps 2 through 10. Now my reader is ready to start at step 2, so I am ready to tell him what to do and how to do it. And this process involves 4 different steps. First, we need to tell our reader what the mini task is that will help them complete their overall task. Next, we need to explain how to do the task. Then, we need to give examples on how to do the task. And finally, we need to compare the examples on how to do the task to what we actually expect our reader to do. Now, if that sounds confusing, let's take a minute to see how that might look for our reader on the road. We might reiterate our task like this. We explain how to do the task by saying, to successfully change your tire, you need to turn on your hazard lights. Then, we will give examples on how to complete the task. By saying, to turn on your hazard lights, press the button in your vehicle that has 2 red triangles, one inside the other. I might give a further example on this by saying something like, for example, in most standard cars, the button looks like this. Next, I want to compare our examples to what we expect our reader to do. So I might say something like, your car's button also looks like the one above, and so pushing it should turn on your hazard lights. Next, we want to use the same structure that we already described earlier to write out any of the remaining steps or tasks for the reader. For our legal reader on the side of the road, this would be done for every step 3 through 10 until the tire change could be completed. So what do I want to tell my reader finally? Well, I want them to know that they've completed the task and arrived at the fix or conclusion that we told them they would. I could do this simply by saying, once you have completed steps 1 through 10, you will have successfully changed your tire. So what does this have to do with the structure of a memo, you might ask? Well, the same strategies we already employed work for legal writing. For example, suppose I gave you the following hypothetical. Our client Susie wants to sue Janet, her ex-wife, for defamation. Following a messy divorce, Janet posts on her Facebook page, @Susie has serious anger management issues. She should not be trusted around children. To recover for defamation, we know that Susie would have to prove that Janet published a statement concerning Susie that was defamatory. So, let's take this hypothetical and apply what we have learned. Where do we start? Well, in our tire example, we began by starting with, you will need to change your tire because your current tire is flat. And that was based off of this rule. Well, for legal memos, this rule changes just slightly into, we start with a conclusion statement that tells the reader what the overall conclusion of our memo is. How would that look in our hypothetical here? Well, it might look something like this. Susie is likely to prevail on a defamation claim against Janet because Janet's statement was published on Facebook, directly named Susie, and was of a defamatory nature. Well, in our tire changing manual, we made sure that we followed our conclusion with a statement of what must happen in order to achieve that conclusion. In other words, we gave our reader the rules to success. And this was based on providing our reader with a roadmap or overview of every task we would be discussing in order to make the overall task seem more manageable. In memo writing, we do this by telling our reader what elements must be met for the client to succeed on their issue. So how would this look in our hypothetical? Well, we would need to say something like, for Susie to prevail on a defamation claim against Janet, she must prove that 1, Janet published a statement, that 2, concerned Susie, that was 3, defamatory. Next, according to our tire manual, we told our reader what not to worry about, and that was based on this rule. Now, this rule changes just slightly in legal writing, and we want to calm our reader down by explaining to the reader what elements or factors of the test are already met or have been assumed to be met. So how would that look in our hypothetical? Probably something like, because Janet's statement tagged Susie directly and was posted on Facebook, Susie will meet elements 1 and 2 above. Thus, this memo will focus on whether Susie can prove the third element, that Janet's statement was defamatory. Next, according to our tire manual, we did some analysis that required 4 steps. And these were the 4 steps if you remember. However, these 4 steps do change just slightly for legal writing in memos. So, first, we want to tell our reader which element from the overall legal test we are analyzing. Then, we want to explain to our reader what must happen for this element of the test to be met. Then we want to give our reader examples of cases that have met the element we are discussing, or haven't, if we want to use it as a counter example. And then we want to compare the case illustrations facts to the facts of our case. Now, if this feels familiar, it's probably because you've already been doing this. This is the CREAC that your professors keep talking about. So following your CREAC structure, how would our hypothetical look? Well, what would reiterating the task look like? It would look like something like, to prevail on a defamation claim, Susie must prove that Janet's statement was defamatory. Okay, so next we need to know how to do the task. And we might say that by writing, to prove a statement is defamatory, Susie must show that the statement was a fact, not an opinion. A statement is an opinion whenever it uses cautionary language. So what would an example look like that follows this? Well, it might look like, for example, in Erickson v. Crouch, the defendant posted on Facebook, the plaintiff has really bad violence problems. Even the government found him dangerous. That's why he's in prison. Stay away from the plaintiff. He is violent. The court found that because the defendant's statement did not have cautionary language like I think, it was defamatory. Next, we need to compare our example to what we want the reader to do in our case. How that might look here is saying something like the defendant in Crouch, here, Janet's statement also lacked an I think phrase, and so it is likely defamatory. Finally, according to our tire manual, we told our reader that they successfully changed their tire after repeating steps 3 through 10. In our hypothetical here, we don't have other steps to analyze, so we can move successfully onto this part of our task. So we told our reader the analysis is complete in our tire manual. Well, in our legal memos, we'll tell our reader that the analysis is done by concluding with what we think the outcome of the case will be. So how this looks in our hypothetical might be, because Janet's statement is likely defamatory, Susie will be able to meet the third element of her defamation claim. Since all 3 elements are met, Susie will likely prevail on her defamation claim. And just like that, you have a solid, reasoned legal argument. Good job! You have all the skills you need to argue in a logical way. Honing in on these skills, practicing them, and refining them can only help make them better. So, if you want to practice, here's an activity you could try at home. Either type in the link or scan on your phone the QR code to see a Google Doc sheet that has another hypothetical in it, and you can move and drag and drop all of the pieces to kind of see which order you would present the information in. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to anybody at the Writing Center, including me, Katrina Crouch.